Hello and welcome to the wonderful world of Innova, alive and composing with today's guest. And here, please insert your name, Marc Rossi.
Hi, everybody. Hi, Philip. I'm Marc Rossi.
And please tell us do you have a pet at home? And if so, what's its name?
Do I have a what at home?
A pet, a little animal.
No, not at the moment, because I'm out of the house so much that it really wouldn't be fair. Used to, not at the moment. It wouldn't be really good.
And what takes you out of the house so much?
Oh my God! Well, teaching at Berklee, of course. You know, that has college teaching has a way of consuming time like a black hole. You know. Also, I gig. I'm composing, and I'm running around right now getting ready for this residency at Indiana University East. I'm Xeroxing scores, going to pick up different things, and sort of preparing myself for that. So, you know, generally on a regular basis, I'm home a couple days a week, then I'm out a lot. So, and I stay late at Berklee and work, and you know, I practice there, and I don't compose there. Just sketch out ideas sometimes, but I have my composing set up at home. So. And
in between all of this, how do you spoil yourself, if you had such?
Well, that's another very good question. How do I spoil myself? Well, I'm how can I put it tactfully? Between girlfriends at the moment, so I'm not spoiling myself that way. But I overindulge in eating out, and I'm cutting way back on this because of you know, overweight, having diabetes now. I have to be very careful with this, and also the cost. But that's probably my single vice. I don't drink much, though I have been known to down some wine at parties. I love to walk, get fresh air. There's a place in Boston called Castle Island in South Boston, you know, southeast, and it's right by the sea, and the air is beautiful out there. You can get out of the city, and I love to go walking there and just breathing the sea air, you know, and you know, hanging out with friends. What else? I'm into astronomy. It's part-time, and God, I'm trying to think. There's many other things too, but at the moment, that's probably what comes to mind.
Would you say that Indian cuisine is one of the things that tickles your taste buds?
Yeah, I'm afraid a bit too much, and as a Brit, I'm sure you're very familiar with that, especially because it's very good in England. Indian, I love Greek. I love Greek food. There's a great place in Boston called Desfina's. I'm giving them a free ad here. That's, I mean, not just Greek American, but real Taverna Greek. It's noisy, and it's full of Greek people, and the food is absolutely phenomenal. And if I get the right things there and keep away from the heavy stuff like the moussaka, I can do pretty well. In fact, frankly, I can stick to the diet I'm supposed to be on there very effectively if I stick to it. That's, you know.
And do you get to travel the globe? Have you been around the place? And what kind of traveler are you? Are you a little bit of an omnivore? Are you selective? Or do you stay at home?
I'm a bit of an omnivore. I keep threatening to become a vegetarian, which I have not been. When I'm with my Indian Brahmin friends, I'm a vegetarian because they are. But the rest of the time I'm not. I have friends who take me out for barbecue, which is another vice. But yeah, I've traveled, and I'm pretty flexible. I have a very sensitive stomach, though. I have to be careful about getting upset stomachs, but I'm pretty sensitive. Yeah, I love European. I mean, I haven't been to Asia yet. Believe it or not, I haven't been to India yet, though I'm going to be going later this year. But I've been to Europe a gazillion times. I've been to Mexico, and I'm pretty well traveled in the sense, and I know cultures. You know, I know cultures well. And you know, one of the things about Boston or New York area is there's so many transplants here from other cultures. You can virtually be in an isolated environment with people from Ghana, Senegal, North India, South India, Eastern Europe, and you kind of forget where you are, except when you step outside and see the American cars, or I should say Japanese cars. I'm dating myself here, but yeah. I don't know if I'm answering this question well. I mean, I love to read, I love to do yoga, I love to do many things that get me. But right now, you know, composing keeps you sitting on your butt so much, and practicing. So the other thing I like to do is, you know, really get out and get exercise and move. It's very important to balance the body and the mind. You know.
Now, if you had a desert island disc or two, which MP3 track would you take with you that something is so nostalgic that's in your blood and so sentimental that you could be ashamed to love, but hell, it's in your system?
That's a good question. You know, I asked John Cage that very question once, and he said, I couldn't imagine taking anything with me. I said, yeah, but that's because you're a Mahayana Buddhist and you're thinking that way. You know, what I would take with me probably would be a strange combination of things. Probably Coltrane's Love Supreme. I would probably take some Weather Report, which I adore. Maybe Mysterious Traveler, or I like Nubian Sundance, or anything really from Weather Report. That's an amazing piece. Metropole Orchestra version of that is great too. I would probably take some Ali Akbar Khan, some Indian music, you know, like that. And I might even take probably Charles Ives, the Housatonic at Stockbridge. I just figured out that, excuse me, when I die, which I hope will not be anytime soon, I would like to have my ashes spread in 3 places. Somewhere in India, the Housatonic at Stockbridge, Massachusetts, because I lived there, so I know that area. And then, oh God, it was somewhere off the seacoast in Connecticut, near where I grew up, because those are all streams that feed into me. I lived in Lenox, Mass. I went to an artsy-fartsy private school there my last 2 years of high school, and that's Stockbridge is next to it. It's a beautiful New York expatriate town full of artists, therapists, and God knows what else. Not much of a music scene there, but it's a gorgeous area, and the Housatonic River, which is a big New England river that Ives wrote about, goes through there, and that piece is so deep, it's so profound, you know, it's over a D-flat pedal, and it's just this gorgeous, you know, kind of panchromatic ear candy. I'm sure you know the piece well, you know, Three Places in New England, and I love it. So that's definitely one of the pieces. Charlie Banakis, my great teacher, who I admire, once, I think, paid me probably a compliment that I loved. He said, one of my pieces, he said, it reminded him, he said, it's like Ravi Shankar meets Charles Ives. And to me that was saying everything about what's inside me, and that that juxtaposition of these elements coming out of my own voice. So there you have it. It's a long answer for a short question, but anyway.
What's your first sound memory?
Music or sound itself?
Let's say sound. Or you can distinguish between the two if you can.
First music I got exposed to, I remember very clearly, was while hearing my grandfather playing Chopin major, A major Polonaise. Bum ba dum ba da 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 dum da dum. My mother played me pictures at an exhibition, Ravel. I was very young. I'm talking about 2 and 3 when I was hearing all this. And my father was playing beautiful flamenco guitar records. Sabikis, who I loved the most, and maybe Carlos Montoya and other people. He was a guitar player, not professional, but you know, he loved the instrument. So I kind of got this European classical stream and this Eastern influence thing. So Eastern music never sounded funny to me. And my mother also had a record. You know Eartha Kitt, the jazz singer, who's an older woman now, but she was very innovative at the time and very, I think, also one of the first feminists. She was singing this Turkish song, kind of corny little Turkish song, called Iskurara. I think it's a suburb of Istanbul. Iskurara, you know, it sounds like it's a cliche today, but I remember hearing these things as a kid, and all these things together, and that kind of made me feel all this music in one and connected it. And then I started getting to jazz a little later, but jazz came after that, you know, what you might call African American music. But I remember the first, well, I was really young. I'm talking about 2 and 3 with the stuff I just mentioned. When I was 9, I bought my first 45 record, The Locomotion by Little Eva. Come on, baby, do the locomotion. And I was kind of getting into, you might call it black music for me. But I would listen to rock and roll and stuff before that, you know. So anyway, that's another long answer to a short question.
How does your art make a difference in the world?
Ha ha ha! Okay. It's very interesting. Just this week, right now, as we speak, at Berklee, yesterday we hosted the great sitar player Shahid Parvez, and I introduced him for a concert there, a conference. And all this week, there's other music stuff going on, and I'm getting ready for this Indiana residency. At the same time, there's a political committee at Berklee I belong to, and they're doing music for social change this week. There's a reggae contest and all this stuff, and I couldn't participate in any of this because I've been so bloody busy with these other things. So the answer is, that's a real loaded question, because I've written pieces about Bosnia. I wrote, my producer here, very, very talented producer and engineer, Bob Reardon, helped me to do stuff for. And basically, by trying to raise the consciousness of people and trying to give them uplifting experiences that make them better people. That's a fancy way of saying that you gratify your own ego and you're trying to help other people at the same time. Because theoretically, if I wanted to be really helping people, why am I not at a feeding station in the Congo or somewhere like that, you know, helping people? So if music is going to be, you might call it art music, and not something that's really directly political with a verbal message like reggae or something to that effect, then there has to be something in it that is either inspired by some political event, like my orchestra piece, Negra Voda, which means black water in Romania. It was inspired by those orphans in Romania that got warehoused during the Ceausescu era and never really had a chance for life. There was this PBS special. So I had sort of a sad music in mind. When I saw that, I titled the piece, and I was kind of thinking about that. To make people aware so they will be better citizens, if you will. That probably is the most effective way, because unless you're going to do something that is directly political, like folk songs or something to that effect, or rock and stuff, the music has to convey something, has to convey the drama of the experience. We're not living in a culture here like Shostakovich was, where people go seek solace in what you might say art music. And we're living in a culture where people look for short things of instant gratification. So if my music is going to have any shelf life and any depth, it strikes me as being something that I need to give some weight to in the content prior to that. Let people know that, and hope the music will convey them to have an experience similar to what I had. And I'm still working on this. That's a really, really powerful question, and I don't have a complete answer yet. Also, as Coltrane used to say, polishing the mirror. And the more I polish my own mirror, the more hopefully what I give to people will be like that. Now that can sound very abstract, but to try to also give very specific thoughts and ideas that go with music that will raise their consciousness. I guess it's another long answer to a short question.
Can you point to a couple of things that you learned from your teachers that you also like to share as words of wisdom to your students and to the next generation?
Sure. Think about that for a second. I'm very fortunate to have some really, really ridiculously good teachers. Okay, I'll start with Charlie Banakis, who was my piano teacher for many years. He used to say that, you're already there, you just don't know it yet, and I'm gonna help save you time by showing you things, how to connect the dots. He also taught me probably one of the most important things. He said, you got to really trust the teacher. He said, if it sounds good, I'm going to tell you it sounds good, and that means anyone can be here. Herbie Hancock can walk in, you can feel good that it's going to sound good. Doesn't mean it's perfect or you're ready to go to Carnegie Hall. And he also said, if it sounds lousy, if your time is rotten, I'll tell you something's happening, so you work on it. He took away the ad hominem aspect of it and really helped people to develop confidence in who they were in the moment, and then try to make the music very objective, and always made them feel that if you practice this, you can correct this problem. You can get there. It was because he's such an objective teacher. He was so much about helping the student and not fulfilling his own ego in that sense. I think as a teacher, he's, you might say, the most spiritually focused teacher I've ever had, and I try to use his models. They once asked him who your favorite student was. He said, the student I'm teaching right at that moment. I guess lately I've tried to use teaching as a spiritual path. That sounds a little pretentious, but what I mean is, so if I have to teach for a living, I'm going to go in there and I'm going to really try to use it to really help the student, put myself in their position, and also to help myself grow. My composition teacher, Tom McKinley, for many years, genius really, was so much about the passion and the work ethic and just being excited. He used to say, what do you get up in the morning? You absolutely have to do. That love of music, writing a lot, and just getting so enthralled with what you're doing, and wanting to share that energy and enthusiasm. As a role model, composer, pianist, he's for me still one of the top, and I let that energy, try to come through. And also with him, he always validated people's ideas. He didn't say, oh, I don't like that idea, that's not good. He wasn't one of these kind of picayune academic type teachers, and you and I both studied a lot of composition, so I'm sure we're familiar with all different types. He generally could take anyone's idea, and unless it was just something ridiculously bad, help them see what was good about it. Kind of the Bernstein model, or what is this about? And helped you to work with that. So I try to use that approach. From George Russell, the great, who was a brilliant, composer and theoretician, not so much of a great teacher in the sense the way he conveyed stuff, but more of a model. What I learned from him is absolute conviction in what you're doing, and it's like a steel rod. The movie 2001, that big steel pole. Steel rod, believing in what you know is right, and he is absolutely unswerving in his faith in his own work, and what he was doing was objectively correct. And also something about being able to see music objectively, getting the emotional response out of it, getting the ego out of it, and looking at what it's doing objectively, and using those laws that it's manifesting objectively. I sound like I'm talking Lydian concept stuff here, which I kind of am. Using those laws to help expand on what you do. And I think that is a very empowering thing, because it really lets you realize that, we're vehicles for this other stuff. And if you learn how to use those principles effectively, you can really enhance that quality of yourself. And that, music is bigger than all of us. And what other teachers have I rated? Frank Bennett, fantastic teacher, and reluctant teacher, but fantastic, wonderful composer and film orchestrator. Frank really helps with the Bernstein model a lot. What is this piece about? And with Frank, I learned so many practical things. This section goes on too long. he's opinionated, but it's always about making the music better. It's not, well, I like this, I don't like that. It's much more about, what is this piece about? I think this section goes on too long. He'll help me so much with orchestration. Too bottom heavy on the doubling. You need more energy in the strings here. You should do double strokes in the strings. What is this piece about? What's the purpose? What's the objective? What's the overall shape? Really practical stuff. And also because I'm an Indian musician and because I do jazz, he's a master. He's a South Indian master and a very, very fine jazz drummer, though he doesn't play much these days. So I'm able to integrate all these streams, and he's one of the few people I've ever worked with who really understands where I'm coming from with these things. So I couldn't imagine a better set of teachers. And also another teacher who I don't often talk about, but my producer-engineer Bob Reardon, who's sitting here helping me, I really consider taking MIDI and technology lessons with him years ago, the reason I got my job at Berklee. And he's very factual, extremely knowledgeable, and very factual. And, you know, keeps me from, my mind tends to wander, as you can see from my rambling, and he tends to be very focused on a point. So he's been a great teacher. And also dealing with people in the professional music world, as we all know, that's we have a wide range of personalities. That's a tactful way of putting it.
Speaking of personality, how are you like your music? Would an outsider see a similarity between what they see and how you talk and how you are and how your music is?
Another good question. Maybe in some ways, I'm just guessing. I can be long-winded, though. I've learned, I think, in my music to really make it, much more in point. I think enthusiasm, love of what I do, trying to, let the energy come through. I think in the energy level, this is a similarity. I'm kind of a higher energy person, and with a certain, you might say, resonance that resonates across a bunch of different spectra, I think, that gives me some depth, I like to think, and some breadth in my work. And I think that's probably how. But I fooled people. Because people have heard my orchestral music, and they hear my jazz pieces, and they go, "Gee, is that the same person? I never would have guessed that." Because I guess I have a bunch of different dialects in my complete language. But then people who know me well will see the connections. I think maybe, probably more analog than linear, where I'm kind of taking a lot of ideas and kind of, like Michelangelo with this. That sounds like Sting. I'm sorry to be so, I don't mean to sound pretentious here. You have the big block of marble, then you sort of take away everything that isn't the sculpture that you want, as opposed to very linear computer thinking. I tend to think more in shapes like a sculpture, I think, and that probably is how my personality works. Yeah, there's some connection, but ultimately, you look at people in their music, and sometimes I think their verbiage intersects. Sometimes it can be different. It all depends.
Well, it's time to reveal the mantra. So could you tell us a little bit about your latest CD project with Innova? And take that in any direction you like. And I see you've got some stuff behind you, so if you want to do a show and tell and talk, you're welcome to do so.
That's a very good question. Let's see here. First of all, the title, Mantra Revealed, my publicist in Boston, Sue Kelman, came up with after you and I had many dialogues about this. I changed the name from Jazz Impressions of Berklee, and your suggestions were very right about that, because to me it meant something. So this is a follow-up to my prior CD called Hidden Mandala, both recorded some years back. It took a while to come out for a bunch of reasons, because I was involved in some other projects too that kind of had to get done in a hurry. And it was the same session. We had about 120 minutes worth of music, and we didn't want to put it all out on one CD because who listens to a double CD set except your 5 best friends, basically, it's wasted. So the key piece on this, the tour de force, was a concerto that I wrote for the Indian guitarist Prasanna, the very talented young who plays with Vijay Iyer and other people. It's essentially a jazz concerto for Carnatic guitar. And we did a big band version in 1999 at Berklee with the jazz orchestra, and then we did a small group version here with the MIDI overdubs. And that was kind of the high point of the CD. Or then another piece called New Beginnings, which is a long, very Indian influenced multi-cycles going on, and then kind of a shorter-esque progression. And these pieces essentially, kind of maybe the main meat pieces of this. And when I had the double session, I had 20 pieces. And I remember sitting down with Charlie Banacus. He passed away very suddenly in December of 2009. A very aggressive cancer. Like 1 month he's fine, a month and a half later he was dead. This kind of situation, and very, very tragic. But and I said, look, I got all this music. Here's an order I think is good. Can you give me a suggestion about this? And he said, well, yeah, let's listen to it. So he took it home and he came back with a tune order. Now, when we did this record for Innova now, Montreal, we changed the tune order because you guys wanted to put certain things first, and that's cool because there was enough time between the two CDs. Back then, the thought was they were going to be coming out at the same time. So, this CD's, like the prior one, really combines my Indian influences with jazz and compositional stuff to kind of come up with my own voice. It's still most definitely jazz, in the sense that there's those very direct Indian music influence. If there's a line, a railway line or a road, you know, there's the jazz side and then there's Indian music. This is definitely on the Western, the jazz side. Indian music is a whole different thing, and it's done on its own term. But by mixing this in with jazz and bringing these influences, I'm expanding to, you know, sort of my world music base. And I have Latin influences too and other things. But I kind of like to think I found my own voice, or I'm finding my voice as a composer, where these things work the way I want them to. And you know, the famous French writer Camus, I think, made a comment that he said thinkers or writers or geniuses or some word like that. I'm not trying to be pretentious. I'm just saying, trying to remember exactly what he said. Will draw a circle around everything in the world and they'll master everything within that sphere. So if you have these elements, you find a way to integrate them and make it work. So I always found that really stuck with me. So I think that's what I've tried to do.
It's been great talking to you, Marc Rossi, and thanks so much for your insights. And we'll be looking out for more mantras to be revealed in the future.
Thank you very much, Philip, and I appreciate all the great work Innova's doing, and I'm really excited about this CD.